let's talk about assessment 1. Firstly, something I meant to do in the introduction to the course videos, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal, Bidjigal and Birrabirgal clan groups who are the recognised traditional custodians of the area that I'm on, near Bondi, and also the Randwick campus between Sydney Harbour and Bondi Bay. I'd also like to pay respect to the people and the tens of thousands of stories told on lagoons, rock ledges, and everywhere throughout the eastern suburbs Banksia scrub plain to reveal country, both by centuries of Aboriginal elders past and those people alive today. This respect extends to other Aboriginal people listening to this. Let's move to just have a quick look at the assessment. Assignment 1, reconsider and reconnect. Now, those words are not just by chance. I'm asking you to deeply reconsider the site, and I'm asking you to deeply reconnect with the site. It's worth 10%. It is due in week 2, prior to the public holiday, Tuesday, September 20th. Present the uncompleted work and your radical question. You'll have 6 minutes on that Tuesday to submit by Wednesday, fully finished on September the 21st, 10 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I'm open to that extending to the Thursday night at 10 p.m. We can talk about that in class, and we can talk about that as a group. I'm open to that happening. Yes, this two-pronged submission was going to allow a radical collaboration session on September 22nd, and that has now changed. And I will fill you in class time as to that exact date the following week. It will happen though, it's looking very good. The workload for this assignment is 20 hours per week, which is expected for a 12 UOC course. And it's not a group project, but it is a part share or a Napatji project. And that's a word I've borrowed from my time with the Illawarra Local Aboriginal Land Council that I was working with for about 18 months. And I finished with early this year, working with Paul Knight, who you will hopefully meet at the Radical Collaboration session, although he is one of the remaining 8 people that haven't got back to me yet this morning. So to be confirmed. The Napatji, it encourages befriending, which is Caroline Pidcock's wonderful word, and reciprocity. I just want to fully recognise that we still have many students that have never visited the site. It is a little bit of a moving feast and an uneven playing field in that sense. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from the 60 or so students, I feel there was about 10 to 15 there in the term 1 site visit. There were probably more like about 24 or 25, something in that term 2 site visit. As far as I know, there's a few more that have gone on their own accord. And whilst videos were taken, they weren't released until very late in term 2. So I'm very aware that for many people, you still do not know the actual site. And this assignment is to draw this idea of site specificity to importance. I've put many videos up already on Moodle. I will put many more. I think there's about 20 there now, and I'll probably put about another 20. So if you can't see a site that you are focused on, prod me in class and I will make sure I get that up this week very soon. I'll try and get a few more up today. Introduction. So from term 2, assignment 3, you have your plan of action for this week, and you are asked to cover the scope, the method, and the something else, weren't you? That I haven't written there. I can't see that writing. This sort of plan of action, what you're going to do, that's what it was. The Carrington site is a complex one for many reasons and many professions, not just landscape architects. This is an incredibly complex place we find ourselves in, I think, on this site. And let's review that. Sydney was developed at the site of the largest and deepest harbour in the world, and it proved an ideal city location. Newcastle developed via the local land coal seams. The waterways seem to become an answer to transport that coal, but being an estuary, it has depth limits. Daily dredging has extended this particular limit to make it Australia's second largest port. Certainly it's its largest urban port, and it's second only to the Pilbara Dampier Ports region in WA. It currently retains the infamous title of the world's largest coal port, but it is diversifying. And a lot of that information is available online. We may talk about that a little bit more in class. But I do notice that coal is still a good 80% of its income, but it is rapidly diversifying. The particular coal port title will change in time, but its scale and complexity as a node within a complex web of global goods movement, often with high-risk scenarios such as goods like urea or ammonium nitrate or oil and gas. All those things require blast zones and knowledge of fires. There's foghorns going off. It's busy. That global goods movement is going to remain into the foreseeable long-term future. From what we know, and from what Google tells us, ownership of the port, that's the boundaries, is half owned by China and on a 98-year lease as of 2014. The other interesting part of that is, I think, is that China is currently the world's largest, or has the world's largest dredging construction industry, managing ports all around the globe. That is very interesting, I think, at a very large scale thinking. Carrington sits at the river mouth of the 468-kilometre long river, the third largest catchment in Australia. And I say Carrington, but I do mean Carrington, Mayfield, those sites around this area. It's part of a UN recognised biodiversity hotspot of the world. Yet, leading water expert Dr. Jamie Ruprecht informally says of his personal kayaking routes, there is not a lot of life left, and most edges are devoid of vegetation. How do we consider the ecologies that have evolved here for thousands of years? What can Indigenous thinking offer us? What can adaptive transformation thinking offer us? These are some of the thoughts you're beginning to grapple with in Term 1 and Term 2. Carrington, as you know, is one of Australia's most toxic sites, and certainly it's in the top 10. I think in New South Wales, I'd need to refer to Sue Ann's lecture, which I will re-release in the next few days. The oceanrisk.com site places Carrington under 0.84 metres, that's 84 centimetres, I'm sorry for that typo, of water by 2100, and that is at a low to moderate risk. This forecast is accepted by the federal government, but no one knows the rate for sure of this rise, and current news releases suggests a faster, higher rise. That is interesting. Over the initial weeks of Term 3, we will work through how to think of these complexities together. The assignments will help us in this way. To settle your mind and limit the many complexities, you will need to decide or commit to, or at least show you're wrestling with and declare it for your site, two things. Number one, mitigate or adapt. What will your approach be to sea level rise? None of us quite know what kind of budgets, etc., what kind of ambition is going to drive these things over the next 50, 100, 200 years. So I think for this studio, you make that decision and progress your design work through that. The second thing is, as Chris Johnson on the Term 2 site visit worded so very well, what will you do with the toxic soil issue? You're going to ignore it, delay it, which I would say is by capping, or fix it. All three of them are challenging. Is there room for partial choices? And perhaps there is, perhaps there's not. You and all of us need to investigate this. These challenges, I think, point us to the types of questions we could be asking stakeholders in our radical collaboration session in a couple of weeks. For Term 3, Assignment 1, you are required to reconsider the Term 2, Assignment 3 as one task of many, in light of the regenerative strategies suggested by Carolyn Pidcock and other regenerative speakers within the Moodle Week 1 lectures. You are also required to begin to actively add the design opportunity of time to be further explored in Assignment 2. You are also required to reconnect with the site itself in its current state. This is site specificity. What is specific about your site? What's really specific about it? Is it broad? Is it narrow? Does it have toxic soil? What are the colours of things around? Where does the wind come from? What are its influences? What's the current edge condition to the water right now? What are its materials? Who's using it? What's quirky? What are the nuances about it? I want you to look at this issue. Reconsider begins with asking, what if? So what if you did very little, but quite soon? I want you to speculate that the first stage of any built development is 2 to 10 years away. So how can you use Carolyn Pidcock's befriend, mend, and tend strategies? How can you make meaningful drawings? What might the design opportunities be for this period of time, this 2 to 10 years period? That's what I want you to focus on for Assignment 1. And what questions would you ask? So if you're focused on phytoremediation, what could you do in the next 2 to 10 years? If you're focused on public art, what could you do in the next 2 to 10 years? If you're focused on canopy, what could you do in the very near term? If you're focused on the school, what could you do in this near future? That is a question for you all to ask with your own focuses. Befriend. So what is befriend? Befriend those who can assist within your tutor group. Work out your strategy of NAPG, which is a certain reciprocity or take only what you need. This term that I'm borrowing from the Illawarra Local Aboriginal Land Council, the Darawal people down on the south coast near Wollongong. Take only what you need. Reciprocity. It's essentially about care. So befriend those who you can assist and they can help you with, for you, your group to remember, reconsider, redraw how the site feels. What is unique about the site? What are your specific needs in your chosen themes? Are there sight lines? Can you see the water? Can you not see the water? Who in your group can visit if they haven't already? Who could visit over this next 10-day period? Who has just returned to Sydney? Who can film? Who can draw? Who can write about it? Who has what information already? What do you have? Do a trade. What research can you do? Remember, we are reconnecting to the site specificity. To help this process, look for common themes, interests within your group. who's interested in sound, perhaps in dealing with the edge and sea levels, in mangroves, in energy, seasons, history, industry. You might like to do a quick self-analysis of your group and consider recording this as an Excel matrix. Part of this site specificity is very much the Beth Meyer, the site speaks prior to the act of design. So just start to see what the site is right now. The second part of this, not the second, what are we up to, befriend, tend, we're up to tend. It is the second part, tend. To apply one's attention to deep understanding and listening, to use Carolyn's words. So I want you to reconsider your existing sections and drawings of the site from T1 and T2. This will mean different things for all of you. From all the projects I've seen, there is quite a range of sort of points along a path of section drawing and the kind of information they're showing. So some people will need to be doing quite a lot of work within this, and some people possibly less so. They may have looked at it already. But I want you to take a deep cut, likely a section or a model, and I want you to take the long view, perhaps a perspective drawing or model. And by this I mean, by deep cut, I mean increase the depth of your sections to at least 15 metres. What does this reveal? Is this deep enough? Maybe you've got a big boat in it. Maybe you need to go to 25 metres. Maybe you know that there's toxic earth 30 metres below with a cap on. You'll need to draw it. You decide. Add tree roots, geological layers, materials layers. I'll see if I can show some examples in the next lecture at the end of this week, but there's some terrific sort of tree root graphics coming out of Wageningen University in the Netherlands that are quite available online. That's a tricky one to spell, it's a tricky one to say, but I will try and get some sort of image to you. But start working on that. Suggest graphically the condition of the soil. What might contaminated soil look like? How can that be expressed? So, even look around on Pinterest, look around. How are people showing contamination? This site requires you to really become a master of that over the next couple of months. Increase height of sections to at least the height of a gantry crane and the depth of the largest boat. If you can think of anything higher or lower, let me know. I might have missed something. Explore how can you show meaningful information to your chosen themes. So that's a very graphic question. Explore how you can show meaningful graphic information on these sections that are about your chosen themes and focus. So this is what I mean by making meaningful drawings. A deep cut will be at least 2 sections or transects. You may choose to show depth of field. So one section would be to a scale that covers the north-south crossing of your site, perhaps from Honeysuckle to Margot. So it's large. And number 2, to a scale that covers the west-east axes. For example, from the Tasman Sea Stockton Beach side, the east, to the west in Islington or Mayfield, whatever's relevant to your site choice. If you've got some focus going up with Throsby Creek, you may want to extend that. So just ask yourself what's going to be relevant and meaningful to your site to be showing, and look for the things that are possibly influencing it, even if they are off your site. Ask yourself what lies beneath. What was the form of this site for at least 10 to 20,000 years? I could have said 50. A clue here may be its original Aboriginal name, which I haven't put in here. But if you can find it out, you get an extra point. No, you won't, I'm sure. I'll mention it tomorrow in class. Keep you on your toes. If I forget, please someone remind me. Patrick, you said long views. So for the long views, so perhaps you need to do a perspective, a 3D, a perspective or a 3D. perhaps a model, perhaps hand-drawn animation. That's something you could begin to explore. We will develop animation later in the term. You might do a short film, a photo montage. Photo montage plus a model is a great way to explore messy model making, just as an ideas generator. You might do a collage. Oh, look, it's another short film. Hello, typo. Show the distant extra large scale, such as a line of ships queuing at sea, or a horizon, or a distant crest. Reveal unique qualities of the site. This site is interesting because so many of the sight lines are blocked by large industrial buildings. So that might be something you can show. Could you imply if they weren't there, what you would see, a horizon, or could you mess around with that if the edge was higher or lower? Show a long view, explore this graphically. Mend. So to repair, restore to good condition. Thank you, Karen Pidcock. Aligning with your individual themes and principles and objectives of term 2, suggest how can you commence to mend in this 2 to 10 year time period? What could you do to begin, prepare, make good, mend, restore, fix up, help? Think of all sorts of words. Address. How could you nurture this site or an ecology? Do you need to add anything? Perhaps you do, perhaps not. Look for the possibility of adding nothing or very, very little. An example of this, I think, of last year's White Bay site, which was very similar to this in that there was a heck of a lot of barbed wire and chain fencing around. Very similar, actually. And some people were focused on access across the site. Well, a very easy thing to do would be to be cutting holes through some of those fences and asking permission. So just think, what are some of the simple things you could be doing? Submission requirements. Name your PDF the following way: your first name and second name. PDF submissions need to be word searchable. The submission on the Tuesday, I've said it's a 5-minute one there. Oh, I think I said 6 minutes earlier. We can decide. Let's decide in class how long you want to do. 5 or 6 minutes, A3 slideshow presentation. And on that Tuesday, we will expect some unfinished drawings. So you might like to say, and this is what I hope to show and what I hope to work on in the next 24 hours or so. On the Wednesday, or as I said, we can confirm in class Wednesday or Thursday by 10 p.m. the full submission on Moodle. This is a design esquisse. Test and explore. Play around a bit. Essentially, and importantly, we want you to stand up and lead as landscape architects. We want you to recognise complexity and work with it. All I can say is try not to be overwhelmed with the overwhelming. Stick to your principles, stick to your site, stick to the limits you're choosing and work to that. But this is training for recognizing complexity and working with it. Aim for a brilliant first flop, and certainly don't be scared of them. And see the fringe lecture to be released. I might release it today, actually. It's a little bit of fun. It's only short. Make meaningful drawings. Last year when I said this, I feel I still got lots of questions, but what drawing do you want me to do? Do we need to do this? Do we need to do that? What you will find this semester, perhaps more distinguishable perhaps from previous semesters, is I will ask less of specific drawing requirements of you. And we will keep pushing you to make meaningful drawings and for you to be choosing what you need to be showing to get your idea across. And this really leans into this is your project. It's got to have your individual mastery within it. So you can create this, but you need to be showing us information and the complexity. This is a graphic slideshow where you choose from your T2A3 outcome what to show and do. You show how have you used befriend, tend and mend. This includes a deep cut and long view. New design testings of the speculative 2D. What if you did almost nothing but still tried to achieve things? You frame a question or a few key questions. For a key stakeholder group or groups, you'll meet the week after, September 22nd. This will be discussed in week 1. We'll talk a little bit about it as a group. I know you'll be pressed for time. If you can, accompany your question with a key strategic image. I want to know about this. Maybe it just needs a map, maybe it needs a diagram. It would be really powerful. But essentially, I want you to have that question. If you don't have a key strategic image with it, I'll slap you on the wrist. But, I don't know. We'll dock you a point or two. But it would be great if it also has a key strategic image. You must also refer to the Connecting with Country document. If you haven't looked at it already, you need to get that into your head. Not word for word. I mean, really, it's about respect. And it's about taking that Indigenous history very much on board, and that we stop talking about this site as having only an industrial history. This site has a history that is thousands and thousands of years old, certainly for Indigenous people, and Indigenous people have been there for 30 to 50,000. So I need you to have that respect in how we talk about it, how we graphically portray it. Personally, I'm going to just try and develop my introductory page. I've just am always so impressed whenever I hear Caroline speak, and she always shows a beautiful page. And I think in the regenerative design masterclass, we saw some very thoughtful images put together of how to introduce projects, and that is a method I'd like us all to get astute with. Punch out an image of ourselves, I guess, and where we're from, and where that country has been as far as an Indigenous viewpoint. So that's something we will develop that together. But Connecting with Country is part of that thinking. You need to also be referring to the State of the Environment report, as was noted in Term 2 and Assignment 3, in meaningful ways. So if you can if whatever your focus is, if you can be referring back to that, this is what was cited in the State of Environment report. These are the constraints or opportunities, or these are the pressing issues. It will strengthen and defend your process and your focus. And so start bringing that in from this Assignment 1. All these things we will calibrate up within Assignment 2 and Assignment 3. You'll be just brilliant at all these things by the end of the term. The number of slides is not necessarily an indicator of quality, and assessment will be focused on evidence of befriend, tend and mend, strategic design testing, consistency with your themes, an ability to make meaningful drawings, models, images, film or collages, and an ability to reconsider T1, T2 work and reconnect the sites to the site specificity with the existing site. Overall, Graduating Studio expects you to have the requisite independence and discernment to formulate a presentation suitable for your unique proposal. And in this studio, you will not be expected to produce a master plan, but a set of contingency plans. Work to this method. We may change that name. It might become phasing plan or staging, etc. But that's something we will all develop over the next couple of assignments. That's it for now. See you in class tomorrow.